you can drive a bobsleigh. My first choice would be overseas. And I actively looked for, what can I do? And you want another challenge that's bigger than the last. The siren goes off and, it goes, incoming, incoming. And you're fast asleep in bed and you wake up and you think, okay, body armour on, lie on the floor, get your helmet on, and you're lying on the floor. So all these things go on in your head. You accept it, you do what you can.
Hello humans, welcome to the M Word podcast brought to you by Martin. Today I'm joined by Emma. Emma, welcome.
Hi Martin, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. You?
Really good, thank you.
Good, thank you for spending some time. I know you're on the Isle of Man for an event which we did last night and we really enjoyed it. Your experience and your background's pretty incredible. I think we could probably we have chatted on and off over the last 24 hours for hours on end, so we'll try and condense what we can and the achievements you've done, perhaps for the audience, because you're not Manx. But perhaps some context to your background, and then we can take the stories from there.
Sounds good.
Stop tapping the desk.
That's okay. So I'm from Burnley, which, if anyone knows it, it's not the most affluent of places. And I had a quite interesting schooling. My school wasn't particularly good. There were girls getting pregnant at the age of 13, and it just wasn't what I wanted. I wanted to fly, literally. Like I wanted better. And actually, I used them as my inspiration to do more. And so I ended up joining Air Cadets, and that pretty much changed my life. Mm-hmm. Had I not joined the Royal Air Force Air Cadets, I think I'd maybe still be in Burnley doing things like that.
Did someone push you into that or suggest that to you, or someone just catch the corner of your eye to go, I want to join that?
So it was actually at school, there was a careers thing happening. And I thought, well, before the careers day, I want to kind of have an idea so I can talk to the right people. And Mum and Dad had a book called A to Z of Careers. So I'm like a young girl going, right, well, I can do anything. What do I want to do? So I'm looking through it. And it was like, long haul pilot. That sounds good fun. I can go travel the world. And then because I joined the Air Cadets, that got me into the military side of things. And of course, you've got your pilots who really are glorified bus drivers. And then you've got your fast jet aircraft pilots who are, the pointy end and much more fun. Although actually, when it came to it, and I did later fly, I found it quite boring, but that's another story.
Right. Can I ask another quick question?
Yeah,
you mentioned about you looking at this book and the mind then is, I can do anything, which not everyone thinks that. So is that something that was instilled from your folks, do you think? Or where does that come from?
Well, I've actually thought about this quite a bit. And why do I have this weird sense of self-belief? Some of it is because of Air Cadets, but that initial bit was I put it down to the fact my mum taught me how to read and write before I went to school. So I was in school with all these kids around me learning how to do cat and mat. And I was like, it says cat. It wasn't hard. I could actually read the Burnley Express at the age of 5.
Right.
So I
seen all the burglaries going on in Burnley. Many messing.
But I believed I could do anything, because if I can do it and these other people in my class can't. And it wasn't an elitism thing. It was just more
confidence.
Confidence, yeah.
That's
self-belief.
Quite interesting. Yeah. Okay, so talk a bit about that journey into the Air Cadets.
So I remember my dad took me and I went to an all-girls school. And so all of a sudden there's these boys, which is very strange, completely alien. And, I was very shy as it was. And then all of a sudden I just had to crack on. And we learned how to march. They give you a uniform. You're then part of the team. You learn how to bull your shoes, do your uniform, make sure it's all ironed properly.
Do you like that structure?
I do. Or I did, definitely. Now, maybe I'm not quite as structured. I like my freedom, but I definitely liked the, feeling part of a team, having a purpose, having a goal. And then I especially liked it when a staff member would say, does anybody want to go kayaking this weekend? And I'd be like, yes, that's me, please, definitely, 100%. But what I found weird was that not everybody said yes. And I to this day, I don't know why you wouldn't, because it's an adventure and what's the worst that can happen, right? Oh, go on.
Well, some of the things you've done, I could think of worse things happen, but I get what you're saying.
But I think because I started off, say, kayaking, it then gets bigger, and you want another challenge that's bigger than the last. There's no point going kayaking again because I've already done it. So I want to do, so then it was, do you want to go shooting? Yes. Do you want to go flying? Yes. And then taking it to the extreme. So when I went abseiling with the air cadets, and I believe they don't allow it anymore, I actually was allowed to go head first, abseiling head first, because going backwards to me was just, well, I've done that. Now what?
Okay.
Where's my next challenge?
Yeah. I'm still trying to correlate because I suppose everyone's different, but you mentioned about being shy, and then people are like, who wants to do this? And it's usually the shy person that sits in the corner and doesn't say yes.
Yeah. I don't know. It's strange, isn't it? I think I had that self-belief. So even though I was shy, I was always busy. So I would be doing my maths homework that maybe we'd got in the previous lesson. So that I was getting ahead of the game at the back of the class, or I was catching up with something else, or I was maybe listening to the teacher and not chatting to the other children like everybody else was quite bad really at my school. There were girls dancing on the tables. And it was really bad. But I just wasn't part of that. And so I don't think shy correlates to underconfidence. Shy was just, I didn't want to get involved.
Okay.
I didn't want to be part of that. I didn't want to be a loud person who maybe bullied others or,
Okay, interesting. And then moving that into a career then post-school. So that was, I assume, obviously it caught your attention quite early. This is a pathway for you.
Exactly. So in the cadets, we went away for a week fairly early on. I think I was just 13, and they said, you can come away with us for a week. And I was, yes, exactly. Amazing. I get to be away from my mum and dad for a week. Woohoo! And we did that, and it was brilliant. We actually did clay pigeon shooting while we were out there, and I got 9 out of 10 the first time I ever did it. So I'd been watching the trajectory and where you needed to do it and listening to the instruction. I actually was the last person to go, but I did that on purpose because I was thinking, I need to learn from the mistakes of all the people that go before me. And that's just, again, the mentality that I had. And then I realized I liked the RAF way of life, because you get to look around the camp, you meet other RAF people, they come into talks. And I decided, rather than being a British Airways pilot, I wanted to fly military aircraft. And then I applied for a flying scholarship a few years later. I couldn't do it immediately because you had to be 17 to fly solo. And so I waited. My course started just before my 17th birthday. And then the day of my 17th birthday, it rained, so I couldn't go solo. And then the day after, my instructor got out, forgot to properly close the door. So I'm now on my own going, 17 years old, and I've got to take off. So you take off. And then the door slightly opened, but you've got all that wind coming forward. So it was never going to actually fully open. But I was, okay, carry on. And you start talking the checks through in your head. And then when I had a split second, I was like, right, lean across, close the door. So that was interesting.
Right. And I say back then, as it was like 1,000 decades ago. But the RAF and the cadets, the male, female, it was very equally done, was it? Or was the dynamics, obviously the world's moved on a lot more recently, recently, but it
didn't matter if you're a male or female, boy or girl, it really didn't matter. Actually, there weren't very many girls, but if you were a girl, you were treated exactly the same. So again, I think that's what I liked. And there is a rank structure in the air cadets. So if you are quite good and if you are a leader, you will get promoted. And it's promotion on merit, not promotion on your background and who you are.
That's good. And
I found the same in the RAF as well. When I was in, I would say that, my entire career didn't matter that I was female. I never felt that, you're not going to get promoted. He'll definitely get promoted. It was none of that. It was always about merit. But then I was quite good at my job because I didn't have children. I didn't have a husband, and they could put me wherever they wanted, whenever they wanted. And I could just go and sort things out, right? Dedicate your entire life to your job.
And then, so I'm interested to, let's say, flying solo at 17. You're like, is the long-term plan there or you're still feeling your way about where this might end up, or have you got a kind of, I want to end up doing this functional role or job?
I knew I wanted to be in the Air Force, definitely, but I wasn't sure that I wanted to be a pilot or a navigator. I thought I did. But then one day I saw this woman get out of the back of a Chinook, and she told me about what she did. And she was the the loadmaster. So she's responsible for the weight distribution of everything that's in the back of a Chinook, the double rotor helicopter. And she's also the door gunner. She's also the trained paramedic. And they go to some really punchy places. And any underslung loads, they were her responsibility. There's a hatch in the middle and you look down, you're responsible for that. And I thought, actually, that sounds really cool. You're flying around. I've done flying. I find it quite boring. Unless you're hurtling down a valley and you've got that sense of perspective of the hills either side of you. I mean, you've been on a passenger aircraft. When you go above the clouds, it's like, you almost feel stationary. You don't get that sense of acceleration because you're not. You're just cruising. And really, it's quite dull. I know that sounds really bad, but it is, because I flew.
You're a bit of an adrenaline junkie.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily call myself that, but all the things I seem to have done have been adrenaline fueled.
We'll just like to find out in the next 50 minutes.
A bit like skeleton bobsleigh.
Yeah,
exactly. You could say that's
what I'm thinking.
Yeah. You do get adrenaline at the top, but it's controlled.
Yeah, and that obviously somewhere in regard to when you're in that military sphere, you're thinking, or the deployment coming, is that the thing that excites people the most ultimately about being in the military? That's as much as when you're not in anything, the dangers.
Yeah.
Ultimately, obviously, you're getting trained to go to that space. Is that something that excited you then to when you were eventually deployed?
100%. So you can actually put your preferences as to where you want to be posted and what type of postings you want.
Okay.
You don't always get it, but if the two things align, and I always had, my first choice would be overseas. So that means, anyway, it could be Afghanistan, it could have been Qatar, it could have been wherever. And that's exactly what happened. I got posted here, there and everywhere.
Talk about maybe some of those highlights or tougher places you got and maybe some stories around that.
Yeah, so my tour in Afghanistan was actually when we were coming out of Camp Bastion. So I was there for the final 6 months. So I was actually on the last helicopter out. I was the last female, but my role out there was to deal with the world's media. PJHQ, or Permanent Joint Headquarters, would send me some people, and I was responsible for making sure they had a program of things to see. People to talk to. Obviously, they were accommodated, make sure that they were settled in. And we had everyone from Bill Turnbull to Radio 5 Live. We had loads of different people come out. But on the very last day, when you are sending everything has pretty much already gone home, but you're sending all the final people home, PJHQ thought, let's send her 21 members of the media out. So there were all these people all of a sudden I have to house. And I also, not really house, but I had to look after, and I had to transport them around the camp. But they'd sent all the vehicles back. However, we found this bus that we must have been leaving behind and gifting to the Afghans. That's what they called it, gifting, whatever we were leaving behind. It was all agreed, but we didn't leave things they didn't want. So anyway, we found this bus. And somebody showed me how to kind of start it because we couldn't find the key, how to pull this lever to open the doors. And I ended up driving all the media around in this bus, almost like giving them a guided tour of the camp and showing them, look, the RAF regiment are coming out of that tower and the Afghans are going in. And yeah, it's just, we've trained them. They're fully trained now. They can look after their own camp. Mm-hmm. There's a point, right, where you have to leave. And that was the day. And so they got to see that, gave them a little tour. It's all very controlled. It was all very calm. And then I put the majority of them on one of the transport aircraft back, and they all left. And then I just kept one civilian photographer who was taking all the photos for the world's media the next day. And it was all over the news the next day. And he really wanted to take that image of the last man. And the kind of setup was to have the ensign under his arm, all very calm, just looking back with the Chinook in the background. And that's what we did. And it went well. And so that's why I was on the last helicopter, because I had to escort the civilian photographer.
I think you were saying some of those photographs of you leaving with your pink watch.
Oh, yeah. So because there was nobody else there, they said, we'd really like a photo of the barren land where there used to be all this accommodation but now you've taken it home. And somebody, a soldier, just walking away. And of course, I had my rifle slung and I had my pistol on the side. And they said, "You'll do." I said, "Yeah, but I'm female, do you really want that?" And they said, "Oh, it's fine, come on." And so I just walked away. They took a photo and that was in the Sun newspaper. But yeah, I had a bright pink watch because I thought, take a bit of colour to the desert. And that's what I did. So, it's me. But it was the centre spread of the Sun newspaper. And you had all the people that had died in the conflict in the 13 years we'd been there facing out and obviously remembered, and the story. And my mum said, "I'm glad that you are the one that is facing away." And I just thought that was actually really quite sad, a sad moment that, I was out there. Things can happen. Although I wasn't going beyond the wire, there were times where the siren goes off and, it goes, "Incoming, incoming." And you're fast asleep in bed and you wake up and you think, okay, body armor on, lie on the floor, get your helmet on, and you're lying on the floor. And because I was living in a tent, because I dealt with the media and they were kept slightly separate, I wasn't in the permanent accommodation like the rest of the people, concrete blocks. I was in a tent, so I could actually see other people underneath. They were lying on the floor as well. And we're all like, "Incoming, incoming." And then the ground shook, it's like boom. You think, actually, that must be quite close. Glad that obviously we haven't been hit, but if it's that close, has anyone else been hit? You start thinking, oh gosh, I hope everybody's okay. But then the siren continues. So now you're thinking, oh, there's another one. Well, that felt like it came from over here and the blast wall is there. So maybe I'll try and get a little bit closer. So all these things go on in your head. But at the end of the day, it's just part of it. You accept it. You do what you can. And really, as long as you do lie down on the ground, the blast goes up and out. So
like a mushroom.
Exactly. So as long as you're lying down, you've got a very good chance of, even if it's fairly close, not really getting any significant injuries.
Yeah, nice. And in that, how big's that Camp Bastion, like size-wise or acres? Or?
I think at some point there were about 40,000 people there.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, okay. It was huge. And the Americans were there as well. But by the time I was there, I couldn't give you exact numbers, but there were a lot less.
Yeah.
And of course, at the very end, everything closed down. So we had a gym out there. We had what we call a DFAC, which is where you eat all your food, a big messing hall. In fact, there were many DFACs because there's 40,000 people. But of course, all them had to close. Everything had closed. So we were living probably for the last, I don't know, it was a good few weeks. We were on 24-hour ration packs, which is a box where you take, we had electricity. So what you do is you boil the kettle, you put your wet meal that's in a bag into the kettle once it's boiled, and you just leave it for 5 minutes. It heats up, then you open it up and you get your spoon and you eat it. So we lived on that rubbish for God knows how many weeks. Yeah.
And as you mentioned there about the photograph, the concern of, do you speak to your family regularly while you're away?
You can do.
Did you try and split it so it's like it felt like a different world? And how did you folks?
I think Mum and Dad are used to me being away. Right. Because, from school, I actually went to university, then straight into the RAF. So I haven't lived at home for many years. And even still, because I'd be deployed or posted to another camp, I'd maybe get home once every few months. So, and I'm not somebody who talks to them every single day. I'm just not like that. It's not that we're not close. It's just we don't need to do that. Mum does talk to my sister lots, but I don't feel the need to talk to Mum all the time. So I am actually going back this weekend to see them. We're doing a pre-Christmas kind of thing because I'm not going to be home at Christmas, which we'll probably get onto at some point. Yeah. So no, I didn't really speak to them that often.
Right.
On my first tour out in Qatar, it was actually e-blueies. So they could write an email. It would get printed off at my side, and then it almost feels like you're getting a letter.
Oh, okay.
So you get this thing and and it was just a nice little thing. So Mum did do that every now and then.
Did they? And was that done that way for a reason? As in, they didn't want you to.
They can't be emailed because everything's secure systems.
Yeah. Okay. And then when you leaving, is that? And I don't mean it. I mean out of the service. Is that decisions that are left with the individual, or is it you've done X amount of tours, you need to retire? How does that work? So
generally you'll be on a short service commission or a permanent commission. A permanent commission is generally about 12 years. Depends on if you're aircrew, or if you're not. Anyway, so once you've come to the end of the permanent commission, you can leave. Or if you're only on a short service commission, you can leave. So there's a certain amount of time you're meant to do.
Yeah.
You can leave earlier, but normally they want a year's worth of time for... And you really want that year because they give you opportunities to do resettlement.
Okay.
You can actually use your resettlement allowance in the final 2 years of service. So I did 16 years. So technically in my final 2 years, I could have used that money. But I actually ended up leaving at the 16-year point. But I said I was leaving about the 15 and a bit year point. So I could automatically leave at 16.
And sorry, is resettlement then about training you, giving you maybe other skills if you go back into, let's call it, civilian life?
Exactly that, civvy street as we would call it.
Right.
Yeah, so
that were the commoners.
Yeah, so what would commoners? No, what do you want to do? What do you want to do that's different? Some of the jobs that you do, you have transferable skills, and others maybe not. But at the end of the day, as an officer, you've got the leadership, you've got the management, you've probably done quite a few desk jobs, lots of project management. There are so many transferable skills that actually when you're in, you don't realise until you get out and wait a minute, I could do that and I could do that. So I never had an issue getting a job in Civvy Street. So what I actually did for my resettlement was my day skipper qualification, because you can do sports qualification. They have to be a recognised qualification. So I did my Royal Yachting Association day skipper qualification.
Okay.
Which is basically sailing, but also learning all the theory about tides and things, which actually helped me for my later rowing adventures.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll get on to them in a moment. So you come out.
Yeah.
What are you doing in it? Because is it much of a transition? Because I guess I mean we speak to a lot of sports people, and obviously listen to a lot of podcasts of. You've got kind of a purpose for 16 years, and that's maybe, it's changed, I guess, ultimately when you come out. Was that transition hard for you, and what did that involve when you came out, and what did you do?
No, it wasn't hard at all.
No.
I knew it was 100% the right thing for me. I felt like I'd outgrown the RAF, and that actually it was just taking the mickey. I realised I was in a job doing 90 hours a week, which is mad for anyone, and I was kind of, right, this is mad. I need to start saying yes to having my own adventures, because I am dedicating my entire life to this organisation that I realised didn't fully appreciate. Because I was good, every job came to me, and then I could just take a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, and before you know it, I had everything. So I decided, no, enough was enough, and I'm going to go and have my own adventure. So the first thing I did was I went out to Western Sahara, Dakhla in Western Sahara, teaching kite surfing, because I also learned kite surfing, as you do. And that was good fun. So I did that for a couple of months, but that wasn't really to earn money. That was more to separate that world from that world. And then I was offered a job to work out in Saudi Arabia, teaching women how to march.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that was really good fun. So if you can imagine 1,000 women on a parade square, like anywhere in the world, it's just you can't imagine it, because it wouldn't happen. But in Saudi Arabia, the main guy out there, MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, he came up with something called Vision 2030, and he wanted everything to be more fair. He realised that the country needed to move on, and what he's done for that country, I know a lot of people have their own thoughts on Saudi, but what I've seen, being there at the start in 2019 when women still weren't allowed to drive, but look what they're doing. And, by the end of it, these women were proud. They were marching around, and they know, they're very capable, and their English is impeccable. And a lot of them have actually been to university in the UK. So that was a really cool moment for me to be a role model for these women. And also I gave the drill in Arabic.
Oh, okay.
So I now know how to speak, but only the words of command. I can't really speak Arabic, just the words of command.
And those opportunities come by just through contacts, knowing people, someone recommending you?
There's actually a website that we have in the military when you leave, and any forces-specific jobs go on there. And also generic jobs as well, but I was just looking through and I thought, oh yeah, amazing. But also I knew somebody who said, actually, you'd be really good for that. And so
one thing leads to another.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's talk a bit about adventures. And in the keynote you gave last night, you use the word yes. So whenever anybody says anything, you just, and you mentioned it earlier as a kid, putting your hand up and yes. So, and that's why I ask about the adrenaline as an observer. And as an observer, it seems like you're seeking the next, not high, but the next. So what I suppose, what was the first thing that got you down that track of doing it? And maybe chat about a couple you've done, obviously, around the Great Britain, the Guinness World Record that you've got around Britain. And then obviously we can chat about what's coming up in the next few weeks as well.
Yeah, it's fairly soon.
And the skeleton somewhere and all that as well.
Yeah. So the RAF offer lots of opportunities to do adventurous training. And, I could have gone into the civilian world, but actually, what does the RAF offer? It offers me a cool job, but I also get to do all this adventurous training. So I wanted to make the most of that opportunity. And I actively looked for, what can I do? People used to say, there's nothing to do in the Air Force nowadays. It's not the same as it used to be. Well, it is. You just have to go and look for it. So there was this advert in the gym and it said, come to the trials. You've got to sprint 20 meters, do this, do that, and you can drive a bobsleigh. I'm like, yes. So I went to Bath University, and they've got this push-start track, which is like a tram track, and you sprint and you get in it, and then it kind of catapults you back up to the top. Apparently I was quite good at sprinting, so they asked me to go, and they said, so this is how in Austria now, I got to go to Austria, a place called Eagles near Innsbruck, and you're stood at the top of the track, and they say, right, who wants to learn how to drive? So then you have to do all this visualization and learning every single bend. And, you've got 2D rings. So you're thinking, okay, left, right, am I going to be early, middle, late? And there's a lot that goes into driving it before you're even actually allowed in it. So I said I wanted to drive because I like the responsibility, right? I think if there's something dangerous, I'm best placed to make those decisions because I trust myself. So anyway, I did bobsleigh. Long story short, I think I'm better at at solo sports, not team sports. Okay. Because on one of the runs down on the competition, Kirsty got a little bit excited and she's like, come on, we can do this. And I think she worked herself up so much when we sprinted off the start line. I got in, ready for bend one, and I could just feel the thing was not accelerating properly. And what had happened is she'd misplaced her footing and she was actually dragging her bum around bend one. And apparently it looked hilarious from the top, but I'm quite competitive. So, yeah, I was like, what? But I didn't realise she wasn't in.
So it was two-man bob, obviously.
Two-man bob. Yeah. So girls only do two-man.
Oh, right.
So if you ever watch the Olympics, you'll see two-man and four-man men and just two-man women, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, two women. Yeah. Right. Okay.
I don't have any issues by saying a two-man bobsleigh because to me it's mankind. Yeah. So,
and is that that competition? Is that?
So that's at the RAF level for that one. But then I swapped to skeleton bobsleigh because I wanted to be on my own and have control of my own destiny of winning. And anyway, I ended up doing it and won. And for the RAF, represented the RAF and won against the Army, Navy and the Air Force, and did that for 5 years and won every year. And in one of those years, I thought, I've got a bit of leave. Why don't I go and represent Great Britain? And I'd obviously made all these contacts. And they said, we'd like you to represent us in the Europa Cup. So it was actually the year that Amy Williams won gold at the Olympics. And the same time I was doing the Europa Cup for GB, which was madness. Yeah, especially because I wasn't really a full-time athlete. I was just doing it more for a bit of fun. But still quite nice to stand at the top of the track and they go, next on the start for Great Britain, Emma Wolstenholme.
And for those who don't know the skeleton, just want to give a quick brief, some bit of context if people don't know what the skeleton is.
Sure, yeah. So it's head first down the same ice track as a bobsleigh track, and your chin is an inch from the ice. Your hands are behind you, and you steer using your head, opposite shoulder and knee, and your feet. And you can obviously do as little steering as possible because steering slows you down, but you generally get up to about 70 to 75 miles an hour, depending on the track and how good you are. But it's incredible.
Do you have many spills on them?
I had a couple, but what tends to happen is it's more of like a really big knock, and then the adrenaline kicks in and you grab hold a little bit tighter. Or if you've actually gone upside down, as long as if you've got the sled now on your top and you're going down on your back, as long as you've still got hold of the sled, on the next turn, you might be able to get yourself back on, and then you carry on going and get through to the end, and we're all good.
Yeah, right. Okay. Wow. So how long? They were there a couple of 2 minutes, minute and a half when you go down?
1 minute. In fact, 56 seconds. Oh, it depends on how good you are. Yeah. It's normally less than a minute.
Right, okay.
Although it depends on the track. There were some tracks that have 19 bends, some with 14.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, I guess it's just learning that. I think we were talking about visualising them.
Yeah.
Learning them and then, right. Okay.
I can still do it now. I can still see myself at the top, how much I would steer, and it's crazy.
Do you have to practice? I guess part of the key is getting off the line as quick. So you mentioned earlier that you're reasonably good at sprinting. So was that a big part of that sport, is getting your power away from the start as quick as possible?
Exactly that. It's going from 0 to as fast as possible in a really short space. So you have to have power. You also have to be able to do what I call the worm, because when you jump onto the skeleton bobsleigh, you want it to be a smooth transition. So you do the worm, you get on, you lie down, and then it's about focus and not thinking about what's just happened. Because if you have a little tap, it might slow you down by a 1/10 of a second or whatever, but you can't be thinking about that. You have to be thinking about the next 2 bends and what you're going to do and how you're going to steer it.
Yeah.
Which I think is to do with life, really. You can't be thinking about what issues you've just had in the past. Okay, learn from it. When you get to the bottom of the track, sit down, think, how could I have done it better? I would have done this, this, and this. Yeah. Learn from it, of course, but you cannot be thinking about, oh, I messed up in bend 3 when you're in bend,
20, or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
So, just the last question on that. It's a set number of steps before you jump on it. That's typically it's just whatever works for individuals.
It's as far as you can sprint without then slowing the thing down, because of course it's flat initially and then starts going downhill. At that point, there'll be a point where you just can't sprint any faster. So get on it. Yeah.
I'm obviously assume there's a place where you've got to be on the board anyway. Just
before bend 1.
Well, very true. Yeah. Interesting. So then rowing. Let's talk about rowing.
Okay.
And mountain climbing.
Oh yes.
2 other adventures.
Kilimanjaro, Aconcagua.
Right.
Yeah, both good fun. Kilimanjaro I found quite easy, but just amazing. And I went in the rainy season, which meant there was nobody there.
Okay.
So I was the first one through, which meant I got to see the monkeys. I got to see all the wildlife. And I think had I not gone then, other people would have gone and cleared them, and it wouldn't have been as special. It wasn't actually rainy, so if anybody's thinking of doing Kilimanjaro, don't be off-put by being called the rainy season.
Yeah.
And anyway, you're so high up that the clouds are below you, so if it does rain, you're above it.
Oh, okay, yeah, true, yeah. And then
Aconcagua, minus 55 degrees temperatures. Well, it was minus 40, and then with the wind chill and in the shade, they said it was about minus 55.
Right, okay, and you mentioned it on your own. No, one other person, sorry.
Yeah, one other person I did that with.
Rather than any Sherpa.
But I organised the whole thing and didn't take a guide. So Aconcagua's the highest mountain in the southern hemisphere and the highest mountain in the western hemisphere, just shy of 7,000 metres.
Okay.
Some people do actually take oxygen for like the final summit day, but I didn't do any of that. I carried everything on my back. So like my backpack was all the way up here because you have your tent and everything and all your food. Yeah. And it takes about 2 weeks. So you have to have enough food there. There's plenty of snow around. So you take the snow and you melt that, and that's going to be your water. But again, that takes time. So when you're in, you put your tent up. The first thing you do is make water.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're camping then?
Yeah, you're camping, which is incredible. In fact, I have seen some amazing night skies with all the sailing that I've done, shooting stars. But at the top of Aconcagua, when you're outside because you need the toilet, and you're there going, wow, this view is incredible. It's just so clear.
No light pollution there, is there?
No light pollution at all, no.
But very cold.
Very cold, yeah.
How quickly did you or do you normally get off that hill? I say hill.
Yeah, 2 days.
Okay.
It took to get down.
Right.
You have to take a lot longer to go up because you've got to acclimatise.
Right.
So you
is
might
that frustrating because you want to move on quicker, but you just I can only do.
It is, but your body tells you no.
Oh, okay.
And you don't want to make yourself ill, and you want to give yourself the best chance of success. So first day camp, second day is base camp, and then from there you go. You'll probably have a day where you do nothing, you're just walking around, letting your body acclimatise. You'll go up leave some things there, come back down, sleep at the base camp again. You'll go up again and then back down, and you're moving things up so that you can then eventually, for your summit day, go up and then all the way back down to base camp.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I never assumed it was like that. Okay. So each day when you're going up, you just acclimatise into that
Exactly.
space. Oh, right. Okay. And then when is it like a fixed trail? What's the...
Actually, it's fairly easy.
Right.
There's as in, when I say easy, there's a route, because so many people have done it. You can see where to go. That's why I didn't take a guide, because I knew that the route was fairly obvious. Right. Yeah.
And so each of those sort of go up a bit, acclimatise. Are they fixed, like almost fixed places where people like kind of stop here at, I don't know, 15,000 feet, whatever it might be, acclimatise, have a bit of food, chill out, and then head back down?
Yeah. Right. I mean, they actually had names, but it's been so long ago. It was Christmas Day 2014 of my summit day. For that, it was when I just got back from Afghan, because I had all that time on my hands to go and do something cool. But yeah, it was just... I can't remember what my point was about that, but anyway.
So just the moving up and then spending a bit of time. I guess I almost see it like extra camps all the way up. I presume you'll not be staying at that camp.
Oh, the names of the camps, yeah. So exactly that. There were lots of different names, and you can go online and find out like where to stop, where they advise. If you're not feeling well, what to do. There's so much information online about Aconcagua and how to do it on your own. You pay to get onto the hill, and when you make it to base camp, in order to be allowed to go up, even though you don't need anybody with you, they make you have a doctor's appointment. And you can pretend that you don't have altitude sickness, but you can't do it in front of a doctor, because they'll listen to your lungs, and they're listening to see if you've got water on your lungs. And then once you've got the tick, yes, you're okay, and off you go.
Kind of cost is it to do that type of thing?
It's a long time ago.
Like hundreds of pounds.
Yeah, I think it was like, I want to say 600 to get on the hill.
Yeah, I suppose you're paying for when they have to helicopter people off or whatever they need to do, and the doctor and
exactly that.
A bit of money for the country as well, I guess. Okay, so rowing.
Okay.
So where did the journey start with that?
So when I got back from Saudi Arabia, and that was actually because of COVID, I was then sat at home going, all right, now what? So, you're scrolling through Facebook, and my pilot friend, he's about to row across the Atlantic with 3 other pilot friends of his. I wish I'd done that when I was in the RAF. And then my next thought was, you don't need to be in the RAF. If you want to do it, just do it. So I decided this is what I'm going to do. I looked into it a little bit, decided I wanted to do it solo, because, I like to be solo. And 3 days later, I bought a boat. And I told all my family about it.
And how much rowing had you done up to this point?
Never.
Right. Maybe in the gym here and there as part
on a machine, maybe, but no, none.
Okay.
Crazy. So I bought a rowing boat, and the thing is, I knew I could do it, right? If everybody else can do it, why can't I? And I did all this research. A lot went into it. I didn't just go, I'm going to do it. So I did a bit of research, and I thought, well, all my navigator training, the fact I did my day skipper, theory and practice, my knowledge of electronics, my knowledge of how to fix things. I'm quite practical. I'm physically fit, so that's not going to be an issue. I just need a boat. So I bought a boat. As you do, why not? And so I didn't do it through a race. I didn't do it through the old Talisker Whisky Atlantic Challenge. I just set off from Tenerife, and
on your own.
On my own.
Right.
I drove the boat to the start line. I've got my van and a trailer, and on my own got on the ferry to Spain, and then drove through Spain, and then got to Tenerife, and then put it in the water and set off. And then 12 days and nights later, I had a catastrophic power failure. 2 wires had come loose that I hadn't noticed, because when you're solo, you're always on deck. You're always rowing. You're always doing something. And I hadn't thought to open up the whole back, check that all the wires are okay. That's not just something you'd expect it to be okay. But unfortunately, 2 wires came loose, and I woke up, everything was dark, and I thought, right, head torch on, what's going on, what's gone wrong? Saw these 2 wires, immediately got the toolbox out and fixed it, and then waited for the daylight, and the power kind of started to come back on. But I as soon as it went dark, I realised that they weren't holding the charge.
Okay.
So I ended up initiating, there's a lot more that went into it, but I ended up initiating a rescue, and I got rescued by a 210 metre cargo ship with 70,000 tonnes of paper on board. So you can imagine the size of this thing. It was coming at me like a Christmas tree lit up. It was just huge. And
you communicating with the pilot then?
yeah, with the captain.
Yeah,
Yes, exactly that. So even though my electrics were off, you carry handheld radios, and they have a standalone battery. So I just got on that and spoke to him, and we had a really good conversation.
So when you first become aware you can't go any further, is it, for lack of a better expression, a mayday call saying who's the closest to me that can come and help?
Exactly that.
How far did they have to come to get you?
They were actually on their way.
Oh, okay.
So they were going to pass me anyway.
Yeah.
It was very windy, big seas, and they were slowing down anyway because there was a big storm in the Bay of Biscay.
Okay.
So they were like, okay, yeah, we'll go, no problems. And the captain said to me, I'm going to use a bit of triangulation. I had my parachute anchor out, which meant I wasn't really drifting anywhere. And he was going.
How does that work out of interest? Because obviously it's not in the ground. Apologies, it's not in the ground. Is it? How does a parachute anchor work? Sorry, I know.
Exactly, because it's too deep. You can't put a normal anchor out, right? So if you imagine there's my boat, and you've got, say, a 50-meter line and a huge, say, 3-meter parachute. And so if you're being pushed that way, it won't, because it's almost like acting as an anchor in the water. Okay. It just has so much resistance. You do drift a tiny bit, but really not much at all. Okay. So I had my parachute anchor out, and I said to him on that one of my worries was that if he gets too close to me as he drifts towards me, because he couldn't really have his engine on because he'd miss me. These things don't slow down very quickly. He said, I was worried that the parachute anchor would get caught under his boat and maybe I'd get dragged under. So I wanted to have the time to remove that first before he got that close to me. And so I wanted him to throw me a rope, 2 ropes actually. One was for the boat and one was for me. Because I'd heard on another podcast, actually, I gotta love podcasts, where 2 guys had been rescued at sea. The first guy got off, managed to make it onto this big ship via the rope ladder, but the boat then started drifting backwards towards the propeller. And he's like, where's the rope ladder? How do I get onto this massive ship? One of the guys threw him a rope. He managed to jump off his boat, grabbed hold of this rope on the back of the ship, only to turn around and see his rowing boat go into the propeller and get smashed to pieces. Wow. So I didn't want that to happen to me, hence the 2 ropes. So, I mean, it was just so calm. Not calm as in the weather, but because I'd talked it through, they knew what they were doing. I knew what I was doing. It just went all swimmingly well, you know. And
I know you mentioned last night they brought your boat on. Do they typically do that, or would they typically tow, or would they typically just leave it?
Leave it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, normally the boats are left. So what I'd done is I'd put my tracker on to beep once every 24 hours to conserve battery, so I could track where my boat was going to drift, probably across to Barbados or wherever, and then I could go and pick it up.
Oh, okay. And people do that?
Sorry?
People do that?
Go and pick it up. Yeah, exactly that. Right, so often you'll get a call, we found this boat, it's yours. Do you want to come and get it? Generally, it's been ransacked, though, with all the solar panels and the equipment on board by the locals. Okay. Yeah, right. But you're picking up a hull, and you might choose to go and get it or not. Generally, you do. But I was so lucky. In fact, it's almost unheard of for the crews to rescue you and the boat. So I'm massively grateful.
And they just winched it in.
I think it helps that it was carbon fiber, because I told them, look, this is a solid boat. Don't worry about it. This is solid. And it was great. They just kind of got a crane, lifted it up. One of them grabbed a rope off the front to kind of stabilize it, turned it round, lowered it down. Nice and easy. There was some damage to the rudder because it sat on the rudder initially, but that's fine. Yeah, and I just got a new rudder when I got back.
Right. Yeah, because leaving it, obviously, it's an expensive piece of equipment, isn't it?
And it's not just the boat; it's all the equipment on board.
Well, yeah, because I assume when you're getting onto
you don't want to be taking a backpack when you're climbing up that rope ladder.
It's just taking nothing, basically.
At night, in big seas, and oh my life, you don't want weight.
So I couldn't think of anything worse, to be honest. But being out on a boat, you basically at sea level, aren't you? Because it's not what you're into. Tiny boat is the reality.
Yeah,
it's probably the size of this room. Is it length of this room? Probably.
Yeah, it's 7-meter boat.
Yeah. The waves.
Yeah.
So I assume out at sea, it's like obviously when you're on land, it's kind of crashing waves, but I assume these are more rolling waves rather than kind of coming over your head like a surf.
Exactly that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
And
it's
kinda,
more rolling. So if you imagine you could see it down the side of the ship, it would be looks like that. It's just a big sine wave all the way down the ship. And also the way that they'd positioned themselves was that they were taking the wind on the other side.
okay, so you got a bit of
So
shelter.
I got some shelter,
Yeah.
which actually when they did put the strap around my boat and hold it up, the second it came above the parapet,
Swinging
the
away.
wind was just okay. Hence, they ended up taking the rope off the front to kind of stabilize it, bring it down, and get it on the ground. But yeah, it was hairy.
So yeah, I can imagine you coming back out onto the boat deck and like, oh, there's my boat. Thank you, folks.
I was actually there while they were doing it.
Right, okay.
They'd sent me to go and have a shower because clearly I must have smelled having been 12 days on a boat on my own. But no.
How much ground did you cover in those 12 days?
About 500 miles.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I was doing all right.
Right.
I was kind of ready for the world record. Yeah, it
Right,
was all
okay.
looking good.
Right.
So yeah, I think I'd probably have got in I hope I would have got in within the time, but it wasn't to be. It wasn't
right.
But the ocean's always there.
How from that decision of going, I can do that, to then getting in the water, what was the timeline?
As in setting off?
Yes. So you saw that. I think you said you read an article about 4 guys. Did you say getting across, or some guys?
Good question. How long was it? It's probably about a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
a lot of training going in. Is it again static training, or did you obviously have to train yourself out in the water? Because I assume there's obviously a lot to learn as well.
Mostly out on the water.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I think if you're doing a sport, the only way to properly train for it is to actually do it. Yeah, you could sit on an erg, but I'm not going to learn anything from sitting there for 2 hours. And I didn't do that as well. And, you're proving to yourself that, yes, I can row for 2 hours, but actually go and prove to yourself that you can row for 2 hours at sea, because, rowing, you've got on a machine, both your hands are next to each other. But at sea, the wave will be down there and the wave will be up here. So what you're really doing is that. So you need to make sure you're constantly catching that water. You don't, unless it's perfectly calm, which it very rarely is on an ocean. Yes, you can be doing that, but they'll always be like a little bit lower on one side than the other. Right. And you want to make sure you're always catching the water, otherwise it's not efficient. Yeah. You also need to do drills with your parachute anchor, make sure you deploy it properly, and also bringing it in is a skill in itself, because there's actually 2 ropes. There's the one that's attached itself to the parachute, but then you have another one at the back of the parachute that's a floating line and comes above, and that's the one you pull in because it needs to collapse. You would never be able to get closer. It would be too hard to pull it in. So you pull that one and it just collapses it, and it basically just okay. So you do all these drills and learn how the water maker works, because of course it's a desalination plant on board, which is actually why I really needed to quit that, because if you don't have power, you don't have water, and water
it's fairly important.
Is fairly important
in life.
If I'd been closer to the other side near Barbados, I think I'd probably have, because you do have like emergency water on board in the case of these things, but I was 12 days into a potential 50-day expedition, and it just wasn't going to happen.
So let's talk. I suppose the next one is around Great Britain. You did that in a 4, 6,
5 initially. So I've done it twice.
Okay.
Yeah, the first time was with a bunch of people that really didn't know what they were doing, and I hate to say it, but because I'd just got back from my Atlantic thing and they asked me, I was a little bit flattered, and I was like, yeah, I'll come and I'll join you. And actually I thought, I always think your next challenge should be harder than the last. And going around Great Britain, 100% is harder, like so much more technical. Not necessarily physically, but technically a lot harder.
Currents and weather, is it?
Exactly that. So you've got the tides that change every 6 hours. You've got localized currents. You've got the wind that you don't have trade winds like you do on the Atlantic. Yes, we have a prevailing wind in the UK that's southwesterly, but actually that can change at a moment's notice. The forecasters are generally wrong. And you get localized effects where the wind can actually come hurtling down a cliff, even though it's an onshore wind. So you've got all this going on, and the busiest shipping lane in the world, the English Channel. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and I was like, well, this is an amazing challenge. I really want to do this. It starts from Tower Bridge in London, very iconic. You always gather a crowd. But the first time, part of me wishes I'd never got on board, because that people didn't really know what they were doing. And I realized I was teaching them as I was going and having to make decisions, but I wasn't the skipper. So being in the military, you learn to be a follower as well as a leader. And I realized my role was actually to be a follower there. So I didn't want to undermine the skipper, but he was doing things. Well, I would advise him. I'd say, right, if you continue doing this or aim for there, then, that's what we should be doing because that's the best route. And then I'd go to sleep for a couple of hours. And I remember once I heard a crunch and he'd obviously completely ignored me and decided to go in between this little island and the mainland, which had a causeway under the water that he obviously hadn't seen. If he'd cared to look at the map or even an aerial photo or anything, he'd have seen that he shouldn't be going there. If he'd even been aware that it was low tide at that moment in time, because I have my tide on my watch all the time, so you have to live and breathe the water. He shouldn't have been there. If I'd been awake, I'd have seen what he was doing. I'd have stopped him from doing it. But you have to sleep at some point. So I did learn that actually, if I was to do this again, I'd want to be the skipper. Yeah. Because every time something went wrong on that boat, it was when I was asleep. So what happened?
So I was just going to say, you mentioned that obviously you wish you hadn't gone on it, but obviously it was really good lessons for future adventures because it taught you what you needed to do moving forward.
And that's how I try and look at it nowadays. At the time, I was actually really annoyed because it was just another, especially outwardly, people then saw me as somebody who technically failed on the Atlantic and now failed around Great Britain. What else are you going to fail at? And actually, when my next adventure came along as the skipper to row around Great Britain with an all-female team, people actually said to me, Emma, what are you doing? You're setting yourself up for another fail. What you want to do is just do the Atlantic again. Do it as a team. Do it as part of the Talisker. At least you'll then have a win. And I was like, yeah, but I don't see this as failure. I see this as adventure. And yes, I should do as much as I possibly can to mitigate all the risks. But sometimes things go wrong. And you've just got to deal with it. You've just got to react and it is what it is. However, obviously the proof is in the pudding. I managed to prove to the world that I did know what I was talking about. It was all circumstantial and managed to skipper the all-female team, Team Ithaca, around Great Britain, and we broke the world record by over a week. Everything went swimmingly well.
No pun intended.
But exactly. But nobody's really interested in that story because there isn't really a story to tell. Only when things go wrong are people interested.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a story there. We were on Lorraine the next day. We were actually collecting a lot of data for Portsmouth University to analyse. There was a hydrophone in our rudder collecting sound data for the entirety of the UK. So you can hear the shipping, you can hear snapping shrimp, you can hear all the different animals. And they've done a map and a report on what is in the UK seas. We also had and I'm talking quite quickly, but there was so much
excited about
that we did, that we took eDNA samples out of the water. So even though we might not necessarily have seen an orca, they'll go, oh, you were actually near an orca because the DNA is on the sample. So there's a map now of what animals we actually were close to. Plastic pollution, we had a microplastics filter on board as well. And what they've realised is there's more plastic in the seas than we realised. When they do the trawls for plastic pollution analysis, normally it's in a big boat and the holes are quite big.
Yeah, so you're doing micro stuff.
Exactly.
Obviously, we talk about microplastics in food or in our water.
Yeah. So this could go down to 3 microns. So really, really small. Yeah.
It's. Can I ask then? Maybe, and I guess people did outwardly say maybe you fail again. How much of that was? Again, we talked to a lot of athletes who've, you have your internal battles in your own head. How much of you talked earlier about being a confident kid? How much of that was just an internal battle in your head? Of maybe there was less chatter about that, and you were thinking there was more because that's how us humans tend to think, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then is there a drive there to prove people wrong?
There's definitely a drive to prove people wrong, but I never believe what people say about me because I know the truth. Right? I know what went on that boat. I know what I did. I know that actually I probably saved everybody's life because I ended up getting us rescued by helicopter because they were completely oblivious to the dangers that were about to happen when we were near the Mull of Kintyre. So I know in my heart of hearts that I've done absolutely everything and that I am very aware and understand not just the tides and the weather, but I understand the physics behind it. And so when somebody says, "Oh, you clearly don't know what you're doing," yes, I do. And so that's why I wanted to do Team Ithaca and prove that just give me the opportunity to be the skipper here. I can do this. And that's exactly what I did.
I would also say there is a story there, because not only did you do it, you broke the world record in the Guinness Book of Records.
Yeah,
so
by
I'd say
over
there
a
is a
week.
story there.
Okay, yeah. And it was amazing. And you know what? 6 girls on a tiny boat. We didn't argue once,
Right.
not once. It was such a happy boat. I mean, don't get me wrong. There were things that went wrong, as in, like close to rocks, and you're rowing really, really hard to get away from them, because you get a localized wind effect that just isn't on the forecast, or you see something you can't get around there, so you're like, right, quick, drop the anchor. So you drop, but the team was so good, I could push them and say, do this, and I didn't have to be polite and, please, can you do this, because there's no time for that. And they didn't mind, because they knew I was asking them for a reason, and we were all in the same thing together, same boat. So yeah, it was just an amazing crew.
And you see around shipping canals, you have to get approval to move over, to
There's only
cross
really one point where you have to radio, and that's going past the port of Dover. There's like an east and west entrance, and because the walls are so high, you can't always see the ships coming out. They have like an air traffic control tower where you radio beforehand, you say who you are and what you're doing, and then you request permission
and then
to cross.
They're like, well, you're doing what now?
Yeah. You request permission to cross, and they say, wait here. And then they say, you're clear to cross, and then you quickly row across. And if I say quickly, you're like 3 knots. And
Seeing a ship coming out towards you.
But yes, there are
impressive.
other shipping lanes as well. And if you do go through them, you're meant to go through them at 90 degrees. And a lot of our training was in the Solent. So you get the big ships coming up into Portsmouth and Southampton. So really, that's just a case of having a good look out. You can also look on AIS. There's an app that you can get, and if they're registering their position, you can see. But generally, just get across quickly. Don't stop. Don't dilly-dally. And
was that boat from GB, the boat you used for that world record? Whose boat
that was GB Row Challenge, the company. And they, as part of the entry, they give you the boat and you take it round.
Yeah. Insure
it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And now your next challenge. So we're now recording this 20th of November, maybe, and probably be a couple of weeks. You might even be on the water. So what's next?
Yeah. So actually, GB Row Challenge were contacted by this pair who had been a trio, but their third person had dropped out due to a back injury to row across the Atlantic. And they were looking for somebody who had the qualifications, had the experience, so wouldn't need much training, and actually could help them train. And that's exactly what they got. So Jim from GB Row recommended me. I said yes, but I said yes based on a few things. Again, trying to learn the lessons from what happened with that team that it didn't go well. I said, okay, right, well, I want to make sure I like you, that you like me. So we had some calls, and that their values aligned with mine. And they did. I mean, they're 2 amazing people. I've got to know them really well now. And Stacey and Jono, they're great. So I'm really looking forward to going across the Atlantic, because actually it's with people I like. So that's good. But also I wanted to make sure they knew what they were doing. And so I got down there and we did a 5-day, 4-night row, which is probably a bit extreme for them, because they'd only really done relatively short rows. They'd been out for, say, 8 hours, 10 hours, and then come back. And we were there going overnight. And our first day off the south of the Isle of Wight, we did 10.1 knots down the face of a wave. These waves were big, but I did it on purpose. I took them out there. We went very wide around the Isle of Wight, and then I wanted them to feel what it was like to surf a wave. I got Stacey, she was on the hand steering, so you left and right. You do hand steering when you want full control of the rudder. Auto helm only really does this, and foot steering it only has about that. So hand steering, you can get the full thing. You can move a lot quicker and you can see it. And it's just, so Stacey was on hand steering and we got 10.1 knots. I thought, this is brilliant. Yeah. So they're really, really cool group. Yeah. And they're trained and they know what they're doing now. And
so it's early December. Talk us through the
So we leave La Gomera in the Canary Islands on the 12th of December, and it's part of what was the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge, now the world's toughest row. That's what it's called. So if you look it up online, you can actually follow us, and we're all going to have trackers, and there are 43 boats going the 3,000 miles across the Atlantic to the Caribbean, and we stop in Antigua. I think it's English Harbour that we end up going into, and then so you can see where we are in the grand scheme of things. But please only compare us to the other mixed trio, because that's really no. It's not fair to compare us against a team of 5 men.
Yeah. Okay.
Or the solos.
Yeah, and I mean, is the 3 aspects to it? There's the sheer challenge of getting it done. There's then is there a competition in regard to, or is that just an internal thing, or is it you win something if you beat the other?
So it is an internal competition, but you only really get a prize if you win the entire thing. So it's more likely the 5s will win. It's more of them. Although having said that, there was one guy, Mark Slats, who he's Dutch and he's just huge and he's an absolute machine. One year I think he did it solo and ended up winning.
Oh wow.
But he's like just legendary in the ocean rowing world.
Right. And I suppose the question that I've been with you probably on and off 8 hours now, the last 2 days, and about 5 people have asked you about going to the toilet. So tell us, how do you get to the toilet on the boat? So everyone seems to be interested.
It is. It's weird, isn't it? How many loo rolls are you taking? No, so the toilet is just a bucket. So you sit on the bucket, hold on, and then chuck it. Bucket and chuck it. That's what we call it.
And is that obviously like if it's really rough? You mentioned there, like as the times when you go, just can't go because it's too rough. Or is it always kind of, you can always steady yourself, you might put your hands out there for people listening to kind of wedge yourself in, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. You can generally always go, but if not, if it's that bad, I don't know, it depends on how much you need it, you know.
There's always a limit, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Just go, be fine.
And what type of temperatures would they be out there? Like in the middle of halfway across the Atlantic? Yeah,
so even though it's December, it's fine. So I think about 19, 20 degrees.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah, because you're actually a lot lower down. You're near the equator, so it's warmer. Yeah. And apparently it does even get even warmer once you're like close to the Caribbean.
You almost have to be careful sunburn, I assume, during the day and things like that.
100%. So I actually wear long sleeves and leggings, even though most people will do it in shorts and t-shirt. I'd rather cover up because I just don't want sunstroke. I'm quite fair naturally, so I don't want that.
Burnley, the Burnley skin.
The Burnley girl. I'm actually half Spanish. Would you believe?
Okay.
You can't tell.
Yeah. Oh, right. You should be fine in shorts then. Okay, that's A. So that will, hopefully, if you had to say it'd take 10 days, 50 days, 100 days. Well, what's the aim?
So the world record for a mixed trio is 40 days, and we have to take 60 days of food. So I'd like it to be somewhere in the middle. I think because they're quite strong, Jono's 62, but he's a really physically fit guy, as is Stacey. She's 50 and she's really physically fit. I'd like it to take around 46 to 48 days. If we can get the 40, great. But realistically, that's only if we have wind with us, behind us the whole way. So it's great if we get the world record, but less than 50 days would be amazing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I just... You have to go into another country, like, as stupid as this sounds, like passport. How, like, do you get off that boat and there's some controls for getting you into the country?
Exactly that. And the world's toughest row kind of regulate all that, and they deal with that. So they'll have it all set up. The system's ready. You do all your almost checking in. Check into the country, have your passport, give it to them, and you get your stamp.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. Right.
And then, of course, flying home is a bit of an issue because you can't book your flight because you don't know what day you're going to get in.
Yeah.
So,
you might want to hang around for a couple of days.
Exactly.
Or just get away from the 2 people you've just spent 40 days in a boat with, having a poo in front of.
Yeah.
I guess so. And the boat, that just gets cargoed back, does it?
Exactly. Yeah, you just prepare it for shipping, give it a good clean, take all the rubbish out, and then you put it on a trailer and then it goes on the back of a ship. Yeah,
because obviously, I guess, during that whole process when you're sailing, you're obviously keeping everything on board, on all the waste, etc.
Exactly. So you can't throw anything overboard, and actually it's checked at the end as well, so you can't get away with it. I don't think people would. people who do things on the ocean don't want to pollute.
Yeah, they want to look after it.
Yeah, exactly.
100%. Well, certainly good luck with it. I'm sure you'll absolutely sail it. That's what I did there.
No, because there's no sails.
Oh, right. Well, yeah.
No engine, no
Sure,
sails.
absolutely row it. Yeah. Anyway, so obviously I'm super. I don't want to use the word inspire because there's never in a million years I get in a boat and do it, but super impressed by just the ability to I would absolutely tear. It would be my worst nightmare. Just the waves and the row. I mean, I've got no upper body strength. I couldn't even row it if I wanted to. But yeah, it's very inspirational. Obviously, seeing you operate last night. I know a family brought one of the children around this morning who's looking at the air cadets.
Yes,
So providing a lot of inspiration to youngsters. And I know from the conversations with people after you had a posse of people around you after the talk last night, listening to your stories and your experience, which is impressive.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you for your time.
That's okay. I should probably have said actually that because of my solo row, I raised £92,000 for the air cadets because I wanted to give something back. And then the air cadets contacted me, their commandant, and said, will you be our national ambassador? So that's kind of why I get that. Lots of cadets talking to me, and also the parents want to ask about the careers in the Air Force. And I also talk to them about civilian careers. It's not just about joining the RAF. But yeah, I enjoy giving something back to the cadets because of what they did for me. Yeah,
very good. Yeah. And well done on the fundraising. This adventure that's coming up, no fun relating into that, or is there?
There is, but Stacey and Jono have kind of been leading with that. Because I'm so last minute that I only joined at the end of June, and we're going in a few weeks. So it's the Blue Marine Foundation and the Ocean Cleanup Project. That's who we're raising money for, and you can go online. And our team name is called Call to Earth.
Okay, so we'll put some links in the
amazing.
And certainly, obviously, they can track you while they're having their Christmas dinner. You'll be in the middle of nowhere. Yeah,
exactly.
Basically, looking at the star. Imagine again, no light pollution out there. Imagine it's. Do you see? Obviously, you mentioned yesterday you don't see many other boats once you get going, which kind of makes sense, obviously, because it's massive.
Yeah.
But also a bit weird because you kind of think you can see 60 mile, but obviously your boats are tiny. So
on the horizon you might see the odd one.
Yeah, right.
And normally at night because you'll see a light.
Okay.
But I think I only saw two the entire time.
Have you got a Christmas hat for Christmas Day? Do you?
Yes, I do. I got a little Christmas hat. Yeah. You got to do something.
Yeah, indeed. So yeah, good luck with it, and obviously lovely to meet you, and appreciate your time coming in and chatting to us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Very inspirational.
Yeah,
thank you,
Emma.
Awesome.
Cheers.
It's a word out from On.
Poor flimsy humans. Don't you wish you were flawless like me? A towering inferno of physical perfection?
I hate to pop your blimp-like ego, but you're not perfect.